Today's podcast is sponsored by Field Agent Canada. If I'm online trying to figure out what to buy, I really like the products that I'm looking at to not only have a good number of reviews to help me make my decision, but I really wish they would be current.
Listen, it's really hard to do that. As a marketer that has worked with a bunch of brands, we're always asking for people to leave reviews, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Then they should be using Field Agent to get reviews on those items. It's inexpensive, it's fast, and Field Agent can do all the work to make sure your online items have enough reviews, and then new reviews will be added each month.
Can Field Agent reviews be placed on items on my brand website as well as with the retailer?
Come on, Phil. Of course they can. You know they can. You just need to supply a list of products and where you want the reviews to be posted. Jeff and his team take care of the rest and get those reviews up and running.
I have to say, the guys at Field Agent, they do love working with companies of all sizes, big and small. So you're going to get great service. And then, if you need 100 reviews or you need 1,000 reviews, 10,000 reviews, these guys can manage that. If you need online reviews, you need Field Agent.
www.fieldagentcanada.com. Hey, welcome to This Commerce Life, an unscripted podcast that focuses on the stories behind small and independent Canadian retail and Canadian CPG.
What we try and do is deliver or pull out the story of our guests and give them to you. The good, the bad, the ugly of retail and CPG in Canada. We're filling a need because we think that retail is hard on the best of days, but it's also a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up and make your living.
We also think that the industry, nor the people that inadvertently find themselves in the industry, really understand the industry at all. They don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes.
So listen to us, Phil and Kenny. We'll unravel it for you. We'll give you the story. We'll give you the story behind the story.
This is good. It's not video then. You can nod off and nobody will know.
No, it was video. We did a webinar on AI, so I actually had to say.
Now you can nod off. Nobody will know.
Oh, now I can just do. I don't even have to take the video off. I can just nod off anyway. My podcast. What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, it won't be distracting in the least. Not to worry.
Yeah, it's all
How are you guys?
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I feel like we've been up a long time. Although for me, it was only 8 a.m., but
it's still an early start, though.
It's an early
How many
start.
do you do a day? I thought maybe you did one a day, but
Like podcasts or like webinars or
yeah, so you do a whole bunch of things.
It's all over the place.
We do all sorts of things. Yeah.
Podcast today, I think we're recording.
We've got a couple today. We had a couple yesterday. So sometimes it comes in batches, and we usually try and keep kind of 4 or 5 episodes in the kitty at all times, so that way we can kind of lay them out right. So yeah, take some time.
I do.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it doesn't work. Whatever.
So how does this work then? Is it a full hour or whatever we have left? Whatever. It's an hour podcast, or you edit it down?
So Deleo, we're very unscripted. So we're generally, we operate off the principle that it's about 45 minutes to an hour,
Like that.
somewhere in there, and then we're very unstructured. Like with you, we'll kind of want to hear where you come from, what you do. I feel like between the three of us, the number of people that we probably share in common will be a little bit, and they'll cross. I'm willing to bet that, right? So once we figure out some of that stuff, and then kind of hear about what you're doing now, and then we'll see where it goes, right? Like that's kind of, that's usually how we do these things. Is we keep them fairly unstructured, and then see what happens, because the interesting parts are part of everything else that kind of pops up.
It runs where it runs. So, I think we did one yesterday, went 50 minutes, and then we did another one, just went an hour and 15. It really depends. Sometimes, it's sometimes even because we always say this is your podcast. There's a lot of people after 45, 50 minutes are just tapped out. And a lot of it because if you're not used to podcasting, there's a stress level. I don't see how we're stressful. I mean, we're just completely unstructured or unscripted. It's just,
I think actually that can be stressful for people, right? Like, because we have had people.
I'll be honest. They used to be. It depends who you're doing it for. If this way, and you guys know I'm not a scientist, so if it's something that's going to get technical, then yeah, I need to be on point and I need to have like research.
For sure.
This is a conversation. It's in lay terms, right? And so these ones don't fluster me.
Listen, you could use scientific terms. We'd probably go.
Yeah.
You can say pretty much anything you want. We're not gonna know.
Yeah. So listen, for the audience, we've got Deleo De Leonardis on. She's the CEO and co-founder of Purity IQ. How did we ran into you, or we got connected to you through somebody else, right?
A couple of somebodies. So at CHFA, Eric from REMA was talking about your podcast that I was not familiar with. And I was trying to remember the name of the podcast when I got back to my hotel room that night. And I only remember the word commerce, and you can't Google commerce and find anything, relevant, of course. So I started looking at pictures that have been posted on LinkedIn, and a gentleman that we all know, Peter Matson, had put pictures of people he'd seen. And the very first picture, I looked to see who it was, and it was Kenny from this Commerce Live. I went, oh yeah, that's the name of the podcast. So that's how all of this sort of came together, and then Pete brokered an intro, and here we are.
God. I love that it's Eric who talks about this podcast, etc. I've asked Eric probably about half dozen times to come on.
Well, this should do it then.
Well, no, I don't want him on anymore. So Eric, if you're listening, now you're done.
So sorry, you've run out of room. Theo was taking your spot, and we're happier for it. So sorry, buddy.
I'll do a podcast with Eric. There you go.
Well, you know what it is? Everybody, we've had people, and it's always the same thing with people who have nothing to say. It's not that exciting. You're thinking any insight. People just trying to get into this mess of a world of CPG. I mean, we're all in it. We've stayed forever, but sometimes I think you got to have some serious issues upstairs because it's a tough industry. It's fun, but it's not an easy ride. Right. So anytime you can give any insight for someone to maybe not make the same mistake or get a little learning, I think we're obliged to do it. So I think it's important that everybody gets a chance to tell their story because all stories are cool. Right.
Yep. That's true.
So that's where we're at. So now it's your turn.
Well, I'll tell you, when you say all stories are cool, I would never have imagined being where I am today in a million years. Being an entrepreneur, that was never in my dreams at all. I didn't even have a lemonade stand as a kid. I couldn't have cared less about having my own business. And science, I'm not a scientist. And in a science-based organization, if you said that to me, 6 years ago, I would have unfortunately called, the guys with the white coats for you because it would have been the furthest thing from my reality. But
right.
My background is, as you guys heard when we spoke earlier, it's all been in retail in Canada, food and drug retail. I started in drug retail in Montreal. I'm originally from Montreal. And then I was transferred to Toronto with Shoppers Drug Mart and was there for several years as a category manager. And then we all, on the retail side, we all started in that area. And then was recruited to what became Sobeys, but wasn't Sobeys at the time, in a director's position and spent 20 years of my career at Sobeys in a variety of different senior positions. I was very fortunate to touch a lot of areas, overseeing, category management, merchandising, procurement, and then was VP of private label for many years. And that really, in that role, when you are a brand owner, and Phil would be familiar with this, obviously, on the CPG side, you realize the importance of protecting that brand and the real reputational risk that can occur if something happens, an incident with that brand. And so the whole point of brand integrity and brand protection really got hammered home. As a retailer, you don't manufacture the product. You're really dependent on others, and you've got to trust that others are doing the right things. But if something happens to that product, it's your face on the front page of the Globe and Mail, right? It's not the co-manufacturer. Like, nobody knows who those people are, right? So when I left Sobeys, I think what a lot of people do. I decided to consult, and I did that for a couple of years successfully and enjoyed it. But at the same time, I started to meet up with some other people that I had known throughout my career. And we started talking about doing something together. There were four of us that was related to this industry we all came from. So two of those people are former consumer packaged goods executives. There was me with retail background. And the fourth had a career in third-party compliance programs, standards, certifications, but of course, related to this industry. And so we said, what is the one pressing thing that really resonates with all four of us that we'd want to do something about? And we all agreed on food fraud, on adulteration. And, adulteration, part of it is intentional, is food fraud, but there's also the unintentional, the cross-contamination and all that kind of stuff that unfortunately happens far too frequently. But all of that can be detrimental to a product, to a reputation, to a brand. And so we thought, let's do something in this space. And four of us got together and created Purity IQ 5.5 years ago now. And it has been such an incredible journey, unpredictable in the way that it's a science-based organization. We have a lab. We have PhDs on staff. Our lab is in Guelph, Ontario, by the way, on the university grounds, which is, again, a prestigious address, being a research park. And we have invested significantly in some of the best technology for the work we do. And that's the interesting thing, is without knowing, we created a company 5.5 years ago that really doesn't have a like-for-like competitor, because we have focused singularly on authenticity. That's all we do. And most labs who will do identity testing are doing a whole whack of other things, of course, right? They're doing all the other QA routine tests that everybody does, heavy metal, pesticide, microbials, pathogens. We don't do any of that. All we do is we concentrate on authenticity, that we define as identity, purity, and consistency. So making sure that the product is consistent from batch to batch in its authenticity, right? It's not a one-time. And that is being done. So it's allowed us to get really specialized in this area. So the relationships we have with our clients tend not to be transactional, right? They want to do deeper dives. They want to do investigations. We do custom research projects. We do routine testing, of course, and that can be transactional if you want it to be transactional. But we won't just give you a certificate of analysis and say, that says does not conform or did not pass, and then walk away. Like, that just doesn't happen. And yet we hear that happens with other labs, because it's a very transactional relationship. Send a sample, here's the result, and your invoice, next, right? So it's interesting that we've been able to create, a company in a space that no one else has really said, we're dedicated to this. We're going to be looking for adulteration, intentional or unintentional. And that today really isn't happening in a focused way, the way we're doing it.
That makes sense to me. I mean, you think of all the places that we could use that. I think a couple of the ones that I think I saw as examples on the website when I was looking around, too, like olive oil has gone crazy. The pricing's gone through the roof, and kind of like it is a great place for, because you can only see what's in the bottle, right? So that's all you do is you rely on the visual, unless you're even when you're an expert, you rely on what's in the bottle and what's on the label.
Yeah.
But you really know if it's, really Italian olive oil or there's a mix, right? Like, and how good the quality is, right? Is that kind of where you guys play? If I kind of make this real for listeners.
Yeah, it's funny, because one of the things I think that's starting to concern consumers a lot is the fact that, I think all of us, we're all consumers. We kind of pat ourselves on the back now saying, we're looking at labels now. We're making informed decisions because we didn't used to, like 10 years ago, maybe less than that. We weren't looking at labels. We were looking at calories and fat grams or whatever, right? That was all anybody looked at. Now people want to know what they're ingesting, right? They're looking at the ingredient deck, if it's too long or if it's full of chemical names, like no big X on it. I think what's scaring consumers now is that what if the label is wrong? Now you've lost control. Like you were making what you thought was an informed decision. What if you're being misled? And this is what I think is starting to really concern people. They're worried about. You can't see adulteration. If you could see it, we wouldn't have a business. There'd be no need. There'd be very little adulteration, right? The problem is, especially in anything today, even like supplements is a big problem. Because the supplements today are all powders. The botanicals, you used to get, something that looked like, when the manufacturer was going to be producing a botanical, they received, the flower, the root. Like you could see it in the baggie, what it was. Now it's all extracts. They're all powders.
Yeah. You
can't tell, right? The same thing with spices. Heavily adulterated, they're a big risk because, again, you can't see if you've got 100% turmeric and turmeric that's been adulterated, they look the same. They look absolutely the same. So it is, unfortunate that we don't have a mechanism for being able to quickly identify what's been adulterated. And I think that what most people don't realize is that identity testing is being done. It's a regulatory requirement, not just in Canada, like US, EU, everywhere, along with making sure that it's safe for human consumption with, no heavy metals or pesticides or whatever. So a lot of people think they're doing all the right things today because they're doing an identity test. And I just put a post up on LinkedIn about it. I've started to post under my name instead of just Purity IQ always posting because I think that I can say things, musings of the CEO or whatever that, a corporation wouldn't be saying.
Yeah.
But this conundrum of people thinking they've checked the boxes because they're doing an identity test. And there's a critical gap because an identity test is looking to tell you if the expected ingredient is in the product. That's what regulatory wants to make sure. You're saying that there's echinacea in this product. Is there? What it won't tell you most of the time is it won't tell you if there's another ingredient that's been added to it. Again, this is where we come in. We're looking for adulteration. We're not just saying, yes, your product is what you say it is. Has something else been added to it? Is it there in the concentration you're expecting it to be in? I mean, is it 10% echinacea or 100% echinacea, right? And this whole idea of consistency from batch to batch, making sure that product is always authentic every time it's produced. We have clients who, they're not, again, unless you're completely vertically integrated and you're harvesting the product yourself and bottling it and doing whatever, you're dependent on others for your input material. And we've got a lot of clients who are concerned. They've had to go to a new supplier, and we know there's supply chain disruption and there's price increases and tariffs, dare I say the word, right? And all of that is creating situations where people are perhaps being forced to find a new supplier, and they're crossing their fingers, hoping that, what they're getting is what they're paying for. And so, the fraudsters have figured out the gaps. They know that if you're doing an identity test, that they better make sure there is that ingredient in the product. But some technology isn't picking up, if anything else, the purity part of it. That's why I said we look at identity, purity, and consistency. That's kind of our definition of authenticity, of the authenticity package. Is those three components. Identity alone won't tell you if there's unexpected substances present. It won't tell you if it's been diluted.
But as Canadians, though, let me just jump. Like, as Canadians, what we expect, though, right? If I see a bottle, it says like echinacea. I don't care which part of the plant or whatever, but it says echinacea. Why shouldn't I expect it to be what it says it is? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have consumers and brands listening and they're buying tea from other countries, whatever, what's the first thing you expect? Is it, one, I live in Canada, so if it comes into the country, it's got to be what it says. If it's on a shelf in a grocery store in our country, you would assume if it had other things in it, I'd read the package and it would say contains echinacea as well as whatever that is. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those weird things. Like, you
But
kind
it's
of think,
fraud, Kenny. It's fraud, right? It
I
isn't
know, but you know what I mean?
people
What
who are
do you
doing
feel
all the
like,
right things are
don't
doing all
we
the
feel protected as Canadians? Like, don't you think it's kind of built in that? No, this is an American issue or somewhere else.
It is an erroneous assumption, I think, is what we're really hearing, right?
I think that's
the thing. Like, DeLeo, we talked to you last time. So for the listeners, we talked to DeLeo on a call. We got chatting about this, and it got me thinking about it. And I started like kind of turning it over. Like on the website, you've got two obvious but not obvious ones. Like olive oil is one of them. Coffee is another one, right? That you've got on, everything's expensive, right? So we get cheaper by cutting it with cheaper ingredients, right? The other one I think that we didn't talk about, but I've been a little bit shocked and I'm a little bit of this, right? Is, there at the end of last year, there was a lot of controversy around chocolate, right? And some pretty big chocolate manufacturers and 70% cocoa, but it's also got like a lot of heavy metal or weird stuff in it. That's
weird. Yeah.
It's guys, anytime there's either a scarcity of raw material, and we know that, there was during COVID, but forget COVID aside, there's always going to be geopolitical problems, right, in the world. I'd love to think that there will never be another war. We know, and we know what happened, in Ukraine. Sunflower oil was in short supply because, most of the sunflower comes from Ukraine. So that climate change, droughts and flooding and whatever, there's always, the minute there's a scarcity of raw material and the minute there's price increases going through the roof, that's when the fraudsters swoop in.
Yeah,
it's an opportunistic crime. It's what it is. I'm not talking about food terrorism where people are trying intentionally to poison the population. No. Thankfully, knock on wood, I know we're not visual here, but there, knocking on wood, that's not going to be an issue. But I'm talking about economically motivated adulteration.
Right.
And that has unfortunately existed since the dawn of time.
Yeah. And
it's not, I'd love to think that Purity IQ is going to resolve that issue for everybody. I think we're trying to take a bite out of crime, as they say, but it's big. And I mean, the first documented cases are ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and that's documented. God knows what the cave people were doing. Like, who knows, right? If you can make a buck, that's the way it goes, right?
I think that's sort of yeah.
Coffee, honey is a big one, right? Everybody hears about honey and it's being diluted with corn syrup, rice syrup. People aren't putting arsenic in it. I mean, they're just trying to water it down, or syrup it down. But you have to think about it. At the end of the day, if there's something in there that's undeclared on the label, it might be an allergen to someone.
Who knows?
It could be a food safety risk, right? I know I'm saying it's not arsenic, it's not the problem, but yeah, you don't know. The minute you're putting, like olive oil is diluted with cheaper oils, right? That's exactly what Phil was saying, right? It'll be sunflower, safflower, whatever. Like it's not harmful, but it might be if you've got an intolerance to one of those other oils.
Oh, my favorite is when it's not even olive oil, like it's oil with chlorophyll. So you get the nice color and the look, and it's not even olive oil. Like it's
pumice. Often it's pumice.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, at that point, just go to any oil. If you can have olive oil, you have olive oil.
Motor oil, yeah, motor oil.
You don't go down to pumice. I mean, at that point, you may as well. Who cares what it is? Yeah, castor oil is fine at that point. I mean, it's the same crap.
It is. It's frightening. I mean, the things that we thought we knew, and again, and when I'm talking about us here at Purity IQ and what we've uncovered, it is. We're fortunate that we're working with companies who want to do the right things. We're not militant. We're not going, into stores, picking products off shelves, doing exposés in 60 minutes and whatever. That's not what we made this company for. We're working with people who either it's the supplier of the ingredient who wants to prove to the manufacturers, listen, I'm not cutting my costs because I've got the real deal. This is the real product. It's genuine, it's authentic. And, yes, somebody else is offering it to you way cheaper. You better have it tested, right? So there's the ingredient supplier, there's the manufacturer who's looking back, making sure that what they're getting is what they're paying for. And the brand owner, whether a retailer or CPG, who says, wow, this is my reputation, it's my brand. I want to make sure the finished product is what it says it is on the label. So we do everything from ingredient to finished product. And it's all different people along the supply chain. I know it's a lot of, and it's something that I think every consumer understands. And it is scary because you go, what can I do? Like, how can I be assured, that it went through the testing? And, certification is the way to do it. If you can, and then I think people look at certification trust marks. There are a lot of them. I say they need to be third party. Anybody who's self-declaring things, they've made their own trust mark. Yeah, run for the hills. Yeah. But a third party, and there are tons of them. They're gluten-free or not free.
Organic is usually the easiest one, or non-GMO. Those two
non-GMO,
probably the most popular, right? In food, anyway.
And we have our own. So again, that's why we're not just a lab. We see ourselves as authenticity service company. And so we've created a certification that's Purity IQ Certified Authentic. It's really just kicking off. So we've got clients actually in US, Europe, UK, and Canada now. Not tons, but it's starting to build. And one of our clients actually challenged us. This is a really cool thing. I think we're the first ones to do this. We won't be the last because it's easily reproducible, but we are the first ones to have come out with an interactive trust mark. So our trust mark originally was static. It was just a symbol, a logo that said Purity IQ Certified Authentic. And one of our clients said, how are you going to communicate what this means? Because when I stopped and thought about it, I thought, they're right, because this is not as obvious as gluten-free. You show a piece of wheat, a picture of wheat with an X through it, or a nut with an X through it. Like it's, you don't need a lot of description of what that means, but what does certified authentic mean? Right? That's up for interpretation. What you think authentic is, what I think authentic is. So we partnered with a company who produces these QR-enabled codes. It's more than just a QR code because it actually provides the owner of the product with data back. As people are actually scanning it, they can see if it's scanning in stores, at home, what time of day. And so it provides a lot of really useful information to the brand owner. Yeah, because if it's not scanning in one store ever, then it's probably not on the shelf, right? You've got a distribution problem. But for the consumer, certified authentic now, you scan it. And again, now that scanning a QR code is on your phone and you don't need an app. QR codes are back in fashion, right? They came and went and they're back. Right. It will tell you what certified authentic means. And what did that brand owner do to become certified authentic? In lay terms, right? If you want to geek out on the science, there's a science page. There's all sorts of information. But this is now empowering the consumer to be able to understand. It's not just a static symbol that you go, oh, one of millions on this label. Yeah. This one will actually, in real time, while you're in the store with a cash register, 50 feet away, that you make that decision, that shelf, to go with the one that's certified authentic versus the others that aren't. That's the competitive advantage for our clients who are using it.
Wow. Okay.
I'm trying to think too. So
go ahead.
I guess where I was going to go, and I'm going to push it here anyway, just because I'm curious. Like, so if I go to a store and I'm looking at things, and let's say the label's the label, and I read what I read, are there countries that you're looking at that do have less problems than others? Is there Like we know, like we import an olive oil, like one of my companies. So we know we get our oil from, and it's olive oil. We know we claim it's a blend. It's bottled in Italy. It is not Italian olive oil. There's some in Italian, but it's mostly Spanish or Tunisian. So we know where our shit comes from. And it's not canola with chlorophyll to look like olive oil. It's olive oil. But is there, like, I'm trying to think, like, because again, we're sort of at a disadvantage as a consumer then, because I would think that, in all honesty, most Canadians, we just go in. If it's in a store, clearly it's been passed by government. Clearly it's okay for us, and clearly what it says is what it is. That's what you would assume, I would think. Now, maybe that's highly naive, but I bet you if we ask 100 people on the street, I bet 90 would think, well, what do you mean adulterated? It says honey. Like, why would you test it? Honey's honey, without knowing that it could be honey, but 10% could be high fructose corn syrup. Reason why? 10% is dirt cheap cost versus, honey, which is not cheap. And there's a reason why honey's not $9.99 for 500 grams. It's because it probably doesn't exist.
So one of the things that, as consumers, we need to be aware of is, yes, we are protected. Health Canada, in the US, FDA, there are regulations in place, but there's insufficient regulations. One, so I'm saying identity test isn't enough to catch adulteration. That's the first thing. And then the unfortunate thing, and it's the reality, and we're hearing it, of course, now in the news with the FDA, is there's lax enforcement or inconsistent enforcement, right? They just don't have enough people. And I think
less and less every day.
Yeah, and I think it's on the FDA website or somewhere that I read that it's like less than 1% of imported products are actually inspected. Less than 1%. So this is where, it is hard. I'd love to tell you that the Purity IQ certified authentic trust mark was ubiquitous and was everywhere, and it's on every product. We're just starting off, so you'll be searching high and low for it, for a while. But it's catching on. People want it. People want to shout from the rooftops that they're doing more than the minimum, which is where there aren't a lot of authenticity trust marks out there. People are doing organic, or they're doing, like you said, non-GMO. But to say that it's authentic, that the identity and the purity have been verified, and that it's consistent from batch to batch. Because again, I tell some of our clients, listen, if you're going to a new supplier, that first sample they send you is going to be pristine, right?
Yes. It's a second and third.
Well, and, people get complacent, they get comfortable, they think they have a trusted relationship. And again, I don't want to paint everybody as like nefarious. Right. That isn't the case, but it only takes one or two.
Yeah.
And you have a problem, right? But back to your question about countries, if it was that simple, again, I hate to always be the doom and gloom sayer here, but you look in the news, like last year, the tons of articles about stolen trucks of olive oil, or warehouses that, again, were robbed of olive oil in Italy, in Spain, in Greece, and in Portugal. The 4 countries where you go, that's where I'm going to get the best, the most authentic, olive oil. Those 4 European countries were the ones that were getting devastated. And so it's being resold, it's being diluted, it's being resold, and it says product of Italy, and it is. But there you go,
right.
What's happened to it. So you can't just say, yeah, I trust that it's from Italy. It is unfortunate that we live in this kind of world. But like I said, this has been going on forever. And it will, unfortunately, go on after we're long gone ourselves. But it is, if you can take the right measures now, and this is what I'm trying to get out to people, because right now I'm not going to tell you anything that is going to surprise you. Business is tough right now for everybody.
Yeah.
We're in a situation now where a lot of people are in a kind of wait and see attitude. They're in cash conservation mode. The economy is scaring people. There's a malaise out there. We're talking to clients who are, wanting to put a pause on projects. And some of them are worried that they won't even be around. Like they won't survive this. And so it's almost like, the Maslow triangle hierarchy of needs. Right now, that very base is like staying alive, surviving.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get, I and the rest of the company are trying to talk to everyone to say, now more than ever, you need to be addressing the issue of adulteration, because it's exactly in this climate that adulteration flourishes. So if your Maslow need is staying alive, the one right above it is stay alive with a product with integrity, because this is exactly the opportunity for the adulterers right now. When prices are going up, when supply chains are disarray, this is when they make hay.
Yeah, and I guess what you were saying is like it could happen at anywhere in the supply chain. It could be the brand knowing that, listen, I've got to get margins. So, I was buying that before. Well, this might be just as good, and we're not going to worry about it. Or it's right at the supply side where, again, when to your point, when pennies get, it was the old days, like when I used to go to Asia and stuff, right, to buy things, you could get pretty much any price. But you knew in your head that price, there's no way they can make it at that price. So if they make it at that price, how did they get there? So and I hate the word cheat, but a cheat happened. But you can't even sometimes blame even the supplier at that point. You're pushing people into spots that the only way to survive is to survive. And that's not a good spot to be in. Better to pay a little more, even as consumers, and have it tested properly. Know what you're getting, because wouldn't you rather be there than the other side? To your point, it could be an allergen. Maybe you put fructose into the honey, and I'm highly sensitive to corn syrup. I don't know. I don't care what it is, but now you're putting me at risk. And I trusted you. You said it was honey. That wasn't me who said it. You told me it was honey. You should know what's in your product.
And you just absolutely hit on the catch-22. You absolutely have. This is a big problem that everybody needs to be thinking about. And it's really difficult. I had a meeting earlier this week or late last week with someone in the quick service restaurant world, and they were saying that they had just lowered prices, like on it wasn't called an economy menu, but it was that idea, right? Like, let's just be the best possible price. So I said to this person, I said, I bet you asked your suppliers to take their price down with you, right? And she said, yes, of course. I said, well, okay. Are you sure that they took their price down without taking their quality down? And that you just don't know. And, Kenny and I have both been on that side of the desk. As a buyer, you're going to push for a deal every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. And you're going to say, tariffs, I don't care. Tariffs, schmariffs. I want 15% off. I want another 20% off, and eat it. And we don't control. We thought we controlled that, as the buyer. And Phil's going, no, you didn't. Right?
Exactly.
Right?
No comment. I'm leaving now.
Yeah. Now we're opening up another can of worms. But it's true. We think that as buyers, that we are the ones that are making the demand, and we're going to get it. But the ability to get you that price might come at the cost of the quality. And unless you're testing that product, you don't know. And I'm going to give you another example. I had a retailer provide us with 2 samples of cinnamon. I'm not going to say who the retailer was. And among other things that they were testing was 2 samples, and it was 2 different levels of private label. So again, we know that there's value-added private label, and there's, kind of the entry price point private label. And both of them said cinnamon. They didn't say, Ceylon cinnamon, which is the high end, the Sri Lankan cinnamon, or nor did it say, cassia, which is in the cinnamon family, but it's much cheaper. It's not true cinnamon. So we tested both, and they both came back as the low end, the cassia. And so it wasn't a recall because it doesn't say anything on the label other than cinnamon, but it was a wake-up call for the procurement team.
Well, you hope.
Because they were paying 2 different costs for these 2 cinnamons.
Right.
Because one was supposed to be a higher end,
right,
and they were both low end, and yet they were paying a higher price.
And ultimately, you're screwing me as the consumer, because you're charging me for something that's what you're bullshitting me. I know this wasn't nefarious. I get it, but you know what I mean? It's comes back to, they got screwed. They thought they were making more money the right way. I pay a little bit more. It's a premium. I can charge a little bit more. It's all good in the hood.
Yeah.
But not so much, especially as a consumer, when we do the same. I trusted you that was the premium house brand. If I wanted the low end, I would have bought the low end.
Yeah.
I make an assumption on what you're telling me and how you tell me you're operating.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the thing, it's some people are saying, well, I'll call you if my spidey sense goes off, right? If there's something doesn't seem right, or the price is too low, or again, even those who say I have a trusted relationship, and I don't want to poo-poo a trusted relationship, but even people in an organization of a trusted relationship change.
Yeah, trust but verify was always the rules, right?
It is. Maybe, CEO to CEO or owner to owner, you have a great relationship, you go to each other's, the kids' weddings or whatever, fantastic. But you hire people and they make decisions. They go, they're under the gun to bring in the profitability. They may make a decision to lower the quality, to buy something else. You don't know. And it's being sold, to your clients. So it isn't just,
at the end of the day, economics is economics, right? Like it's hard. You can't get away from it. Like it's funny because, and you'll appreciate this. Like we talk to brands every day, and they're always like, maybe one day I can get the cost of goods down, or if I sell enough stuff,
do 1 million bottles, it'll be this. And
we always say to them, listen, the cost is the cost is the cost. If you can't get it down now, you're asking for a world of hurt, right? Because one day you may sell 1 million bottles, which allow you to lower the cost like by 15 cents, but not likely and not anytime soon. So if you know what I mean? Like, so it's inescapable. The spidey sense is not a good one because everyone plays by the same rules. If I supply you and everybody else, I know what you're asking for. I already told you I can't supply. You tell me you want that. Well, I guess I'll find another way to get there. Right. And then,
but I think that's what you force even suppliers or everybody into.
Yeah.
Like, I bought private label for London for years too, right?
Yeah.
I bought OTC, I bought vitamin, right? And because my spidey sense is always running to some degree. I wasn't one of those buyers who always was grinding because I knew grinding comes at a cost. Yay, you can pretend you're the best buyer on the planet because you saved 3 cents. How did you save the 3? My thing, and maybe it's a heritage issue, is I don't trust you. There's no fucking way you're giving me a deal without somehow you got that money back somewhere, which means you had to cheat. Now, that's not the way to go through life. I get it. But it wasn't always running to the bottom rung. You get a house built for $250 a square foot or $175 a square foot. My question would be is, if that guy can't do it for 175, why do you think that guy can? Now, maybe this guy's ripping you off, and maybe everybody should be at $175. I don't know, but shit, if it doesn't start ringing bells, but at that point, you should trust that if you are paying, like I feel bad for the cinnamon person because I would be that person. I'd be thinking I'm paying a little bit more. Clearly, it's because it's a premium.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why I'm paying more. Yeah. And it's probably the same supplier. That's even worse.
That's what the scary things are, right? And some are just saying, listen, I got a certificate of analysis. Oh, like that can't be forged. That can't be.
Why would you think that? I mean, it can't forge because you don't know.
Now you're shattering my world. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what?
Listen, I've had people, senior people in organizations, say, well, what happens if it doesn't pass? I don't want to know.
You better want to know.
Dear Lord, oh my sweet Jesus, what do you mean? Head in the sand. Yeah.
You want to know. You want to actually maybe even tell people, listen, because we give a shit, we found it and we're fixing it or whatever. You may not want to blast it out across a newspaper, but at least when someone catches you, say, oh my God, we took care of this 2 years ago.
And that's why CEOs need to be listening to this, because I want to tell them sometimes your people are afraid of the bad news and of what that might mean. Instead of thinking, right, that yes, you're going to do a recall. Yes, it's a pain in the butt. Yes, it's probably Friday afternoon that you're going to have to do this, and it's a whole bunch of things, and it's an inconvenience for everyone. Yeah. But what's the cost of not doing it?
A death. A death. reputational death,
Yeah,
closing of a business, closing of a brand. I mean, it happens. It happens. And to your right, to that fear of not doing the right thing is obviously fundamentally wrong. We should always be trying to do the right thing. To your point, I mean, I think for the most part, the world runs pretty non-nefariously. It's not with malintent. Shit happens. For the most part, I think we do try to do our best. But at times like right now, when you are just literally trying to stay above water, I hate to tell you how a lot of people are going to do it. You're just going to find you grab onto the person beside you and they're your float. If they go under, well, whatever, I made it. I mean, I know that's terrible to say, but you know, I'm getting it's that survival mode just kicks in. And it's so much, oh yeah, geez, not good. Not good.
That's kind of the soapbox that we're on. It's really to wake the industry up. You think you're doing all the right, and they are, you know what? And I don't want to take away from. You're checking a lot of boxes. You're
the intent is right.
The intent 100% is right.
Spot on.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And it's trying to get that word out, and it's trying to get, and so I thank you for this platform, because it's important that people hear, even conversationally, it's not a sales pitch. Of course, it's, we're a for-profit company. We're not idiots either, but it is.
Well, you don't do this for free.
People need to know.
I thought this was free.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God! Now we got to pay for this too.
Well, I'm not paying for this podcast. That's for sure.
How do you know?
I'm charging you. I'm charging you for my time.
The bill's coming, baby. It's already on its way.
I need a new pair of shoes, folks. So there we go. But seriously, it is trying to get the word out, because as a consumer, this is the one thing my mother understands that I do now. She didn't understand a lot of what I did at Sobeys, national procurement. She had no idea what the heck we did. But she understands, like she sends me articles. Like, is this what you do? And oh my God, what about this product? Can I buy this product? People get it. They're afraid. They're I don't know if afraid is the right word. They're concerned. They're concerned, and we should all be concerned. And I want manufacturers, suppliers, brand owners to be thinking that you may think you're doing everything. I hear people say we're doing audits. That's fantastic. GMP audits are great, but they're looking at the facility.
Right.
It's good manufacturing practices. It's not looking at the product.
Yes, not good procurement practices or good supply chain practices.
Exactly. So yeah, you need to have GMPs in place. You need to be looking at certificates of analysis. Blockchain. Again, blockchain is only as good as the information you feed it. Right? It's so only testing is scientific proof. That's the only thing. And again, the right kind of testing. So you think I am testing. You're probably only getting an identity test. You're not getting purity and consistency. And that's an authenticity test. Yeah. And some may call it authenticity, but they're only doing an identity test. So ask the questions. Ask your labs. What exactly?
We got to listen to stuff like this, Deleo, to understand what you're supposed to be asking too. Because again, I sent it for testing. Like, what do you want me to do? I tested it. Clearly, they're testing all the right things. Otherwise, why would they test it? Do you know what I mean? It's like anything, though. If you don't, you go to a doctor and you say you got a, sore toe, he's not checking your heart, or she's not checking your heart. Like you got to make the same assumptions. You get what you ask for is what you get. Can you test that this is calcium? 100%. Comes back.
It's funny that you said that, because one of the concepts that struck me as I was learning more and more about this business and not being a scientist was this whole notion of targeted versus untargeted testing. And they're English words. They're not complicated words. We all know what a target is, but it was what that meant, the implication. So targeted testing, which is a lot of testing that goes on today, is looking for something specific. Yeah. You're asking it to look for X. You're asking, is there echinacea? We keep picking on echinacea, but
is there echinacea? Yes, there is echinacea.
Yes, there's echinacea. Thank you. Next. Non-targeted looks at everything. Yeah. It exposes everything in a product. Yeah. This is the technology that we invested in. Our technology is both targeted and non-targeted because we created a company about adulteration. If you're using targeted to hopefully find adulteration, it's a needle in a haystack. It's your example of going to the doctor saying, looks at your toe and you've got a problem with your heart. Well, if it's targeting your toe, you want to go for a full body MRI, then maybe that's untargeted.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to find out what happened to your toe.
Well, so that's exactly when the penny dropped, when, the scientists will go, they kept saying targeted, non-targeted. I finally went, are you saying what I think you're saying?
Yeah.
When I understood what that meant, and I'm getting that word out in lay terms to companies who aren't scientists either, the people I'm talking to aren't scientists, it's like they get it. They go, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Ask your lab, are you using targeted or non-targeted testing?
But you know what it was? Because I think, Deleo, I think the assumption is, I asked you to test, is this actually 500 milligrams of calcium carbonate? And you come back and say, yeah, it's 500 milligrams calcium carbonate. My assumption would be, well, clearly, if it was 500 milligrams of calcium carbonate and 1,000 milligrams of all this other shit, clearly you would tell me. Because I just asked you to test it, but you did it. You asked for a specific test and you got the specific result. And that's not the lab again being nefarious. It's your question. How do you feel today? My toe's sore. Okay, let's look at your toe. Your toes look okay. Maybe you have athlete's foot. Here's a prescription. Go home and die of a heart attack. And everybody's mad at the doctor. They think, like, they didn't tell me about the heart. He wanted to know how his toe was. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can't draw all these lines to try to figure out where. What did you want to know? I wanted to know, is this calcium carbonate? Yes, it is. My fault is I should have maybe said, not just calcium carbonate. Can you tell me what else is? What are the fillers? How much are the fillers? Like what fillers? Right? Because nothing's pure. People don't know that either. That
if I spin away from this,
are in there.
I think that if I spin away from this for a second, I think what makes sense to me, because I've been banging up against this for a little bit. Like you guys have been talking, I've been thinking about this a lot. And like, I think the part that it feels weird. So one is, it feels weird that not everybody does this, right? And I've been trying to figure out why, right? Because you're kind of like, look, the three of us, between the three of us, we have more years than we care to admit and experience around making products, selling products, identifying products, right? Like I'm sure between the three of us, we could do that just fine, right? But like why? And I think, what came into my head, I think is more like in lay terms, this is like getting a DNA test, right? So I'm Chinese by heritage, Kenny's Italian by heritage. Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of go, my assumption is when I get the DNA test, it'll tell me my ancestors come from Beijing or whatever, all those sort of things. But what we all started to realize is like, the world is a messy place, right? Like you are only a quarter Chinese and you've got some, whatever in you and something else and something else and something else.
You're thinking, what?
And you're thinking, well, how did that happen? Right. Like, and then, so I feel like,
if I have to explain to you how that happened, we have a problem.
Oh, I'm sure DNA tests have broken up families just for those reasons, right? Like, it's a whole different kettle of fish. But I think what listeners should get out of this is the same thing, right? Is, you expect that you're getting cinnamon pure, like high grade, low grade, and you think it's an absolute thing because it's very much like a lineage thing, right? You think, well, he's Chinese. All of his family is Chinese. They've all said they were Chinese. They all got married to Chinese. Must be Chinese, right? But somewhere along the way, what you didn't consider is really you're like 15% Chinese in actual DNA, and the rest of it is heritage, right? And so it's not straightforward, right? Like you actually need to ask for the full gambit to figure out like exactly what is the lineage here, so you can then deal with it differently. Right? Like, I think that's, if I take this away from the product line for a second and just think about this different is the world is full of like, weird answers for weird things. And whether it's nefarious or not, you need to know what you're putting in your product is actually the product, right?
You also, and then you got to know what to ask though, again, like sending it, like we were pretty good. Like in the old, like when I bought vitamins and stuff, because I was on the OTC side, but obviously I had to work with pharmacy. So, John C was pharmacy manager for London Drugs. And, he would come and say, well, we should really test these. And, well, I don't care. Sure. I'm assuming it is what it is, but yeah, let's do it, right? Because when Paolo, who ran the company, same thing. It was a cultural thing. It was one of the things. Listen, we're a drugstore. Our name is on this, right? If this goes sideways, nobody gives a shit who made the product. It's you, bad London drugs. You bad people did this to me. So we were pretty freaked out, especially when it came to like OTC vitamins, like true ingestibles. You're thinking, shit, man, I don't need this stuff to go sideways. Like, I don't want to be in the newspaper or whatever. And so it was a corporate thing from up top down, where it was drilled in your head, guys. Just think this through. Take your time and make sure that you are doing things. So when someone does call, the press gets wind that, hey, calcium's highly adulterated or whatever, that you hopefully have done enough testing. Do you know your fillers? Do you know what else is in here? Right? I'm assuming that was, so I'm hoping now that I'm saying that, like when we were asking like the fillers and all that stuff, is that sort of like the integrity authentic? Because I'm asking for like, what is this? Not, is it calcium? Like, what's in this? That's,
and you're 100% right. You're 100% right.
I just want to make sure I don't want to feel guilty for the past.
No. Yeah, and it's great that you guys, did that due diligence. And more should.
Years ago.
They're not. A lot of people aren't, and that's what is. I'm glad to hear, and I hope it's still going on at
Me too.
But it's even things like maltodextrin. There's a whole thing, about botanicals and excessive amounts of maltodextrin. And maltodextrin is expected to be found in botanicals because it's used as a carrier. It's used,
right,
regularly. But you're expecting 5% or less than 5% or maybe 10%. But we're coming across products with like over 80, 85% maltodextrin.
Oh my God. Okay. I thought you were going to get to 40.
So no, this and
you're buying multidextrin is what you're buying.
You're buying multidextrin with, like essence,
some other stuff.
Yeah, whatever, like they sprinkled it, whatever on top. But it is frightening when you see
That's
that.
Scary.
Because now again with a supplement, we're all taking supplements because we think that there's a therapeutic benefit. But now you're getting something with zero efficacy. Zero. Not only did you just get defrauded and you paid good money for something, but you're not getting any benefit.
Yeah, no benefit.
No.
Right. I mean, if you had the other stuff in there, but at least the stuff I was supposed to have is in there and at the right levels. I mean, I'm still going to be angry at you because, I don't know why you're jamming so much filler in this, but at least I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting. But, again, everything comes at a cost, or a price. If you get more of this, you get less of something. Like it's a push and pull, and people need to understand that. And I loved what you said before about buyers, because I knew all those buyers too. It's not the right price.
Yeah, exactly.
A bunch of bullshit. The price is the price. You know what you probably got? You didn't get what you got because someone had to cheat somewhere, because everybody has to eat. And these poor people have to live too.
Yeah.
And you grind away. It's coming from something. You're not the only one on the planet who's the savior now. And, you've made it through the day. Like, if people had to sacrifice downhill, sooner or later, something got cut. It's just inevitable. That's not nefarious. People just have to survive.
That's it. That's just reality. It's reality, right? Yeah, exactly. And so that is, again, I said it, the soapbox. It's getting people to realize that you may think you're doing all the right things. You're missing a really big component.
Yeah.
And like I said, the adulterers are out there in full swing, and they're waiting for these opportunities, and they know where the gaps are. They know where the shortcomings are, and they just swoop in. The minute,
I guess they probably even know who to target, because again, if culturally, like you, if your CEOs don't, it's a small world. If you told me, hey, I've talked to a few CEOs and they don't want to know, don't kid yourself. You're not the only one that knows that. Shit like that floats. And then opportunists know that, okay, listen, if we need to dump some shit or, we need to make some money, go to them. They won't check. And again, make it sound like this is an evil industry. It's not. For the most part, people are all trying to do the best they can in the right way. But we need to be even more diligent as consumers and push our brands and our retailers clearly to make sure they're doing their right thing. And, and then saying, have you got it purity IQ'd? Have you got it tested? And I'm assuming there are other people, this is obviously your podcast, but there are testing facilities on this planet, you and others, that just ask the right questions. I mean, go to you first. and stay there. But you know what I'm trying to say is that you just need to do your due diligence to and ask the right questions. Don't just ask, is it calcium? Yes, is it calcium? Is there anything else in here that I need to worry about or be concerned about? Whatever that means. Allergens, I don't care. Too much of sugar, too much not, whatever it is.
And that's why they need to be asking. And again, you're right. This is not the Purity IQ hour.
Well, it is, but
but it's not. There are other labs out there. There are good labs out there. You've got to ask them: are you doing an identity test, or are you doing an authenticity test?
Right.
Are you using targeted or untargeted methods? Right. There's questions to make sure, because again, there are other technology, and unfortunately, again, we didn't know it when we started this company. We've invested in technology that isn't readily out there. Didn't know, because it's very expensive. And so labs today have a lot of other equipment because they do a lot of other tests. We only do that. So we invested in this super expensive technology because that's all we do. It's not on every street corner. So that's why we're very different. And again, I'd love to tell you it was the master plan. We didn't know what we didn't know. We happened to have created a company in a white space with technology that is really only in universities and in law enforcement and things, right? So it is a service
that's
that we offer that's not readily available, right?
You got to ask for the right testing too, right? Because I remember at the time when we were doing it, you could do, was it USP or USP, I think, or you could also do, and that would tell you certain things. And then if you did a mass spec, it would tell you other things. So we always tried to find, now again, I'm sure technology has changed over the last 20 years, clearly, but we tried to get to people who did not just the one, because the one would tell you certain things and the other would tell you a lot more. So you're always trying to get to one.
Anything other than authenticity. And that's why we're very clear. You continue to use your lab for all your other QA testing needs. We don't do any of that. We actually have very large lab networks that you know well from your background that everybody's using today to test their products. They're sending us their clients' products and samples for authenticity testing because they don't have NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. That's the technology we have.
Okay, that's where we're at today.
They don't have it anywhere in North America, so they're sending us their samples to be able.
At least they're sending it to you, so I'm so happy still. Good.
Yeah, well, but you know what? It's complementary. We're not competing with each other. We don't do the heavy metal test and all that, and I
don't want to buy the equipment. I just want to use someone else's.
Exactly. So that's what we created this company for. We are that last step, the assurance you're looking for to make sure that you have done everything to be able to confidently tell your either the end consumer or your client that your product is authentic. That there's no dilution, no substitution, no addition. And
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
That's very interesting.
We are out of time. But before you go, thank you, one.
Yes.
I think this has been amazing, and I do think this is something people need to be thinking about. If you're an owner, an operator, someone who makes a product, start asking those questions, right? Like, is this something you do you actually know, right? Like, I think that's important. If people want to talk to you, where do they, website, socials, is there a place they find
LinkedIn,
you?
We do.
Yeah. So, and I want to first of all thank you for the time as well and for giving me this platform. Because I can talk about this till the cows come home. Seriously, like I'm very passionate. I think you can tell. I believe in what we're doing, and our clients have become ambassadors, which is great, right? They're evangelists for what we do because they see the difference. So that's fantastic. But if anybody wants to reach out to us, our website is www.purity-iq. It's that hyphen will kill you every time.
Okay.
So purity-iq.com. We're on LinkedIn under Purity IQ. You're welcome to reach out to me, Deleo De Leonardis. I know it's a mouthful, but I've got a LinkedIn page with a lot of good content if anybody is interested as well. But would love to talk to any of your listeners.
Awesome.
If things happen in the industry, sorry, Phil, if something cool's happening or there's a change in something, or if you want to just do an update like in 3, 4 months, 6 months, because there's a new technology or maybe something we should be worried about that people should be testing for, You can always come back on. We do 15 minuters. We can pop out there because I think it's just good information for the people who listen to us specifically. It's really good information for them to have, just so they know that, hey,
I'm going to do a podcast with Eric from Rima on this show, right?
I'm not having Eric on. No, Eric's not
I'm
allowed.
sorry. I'm insisting that he'll be my guest.
Listen,
well, okay, but that's the only way he's going to get
Eric's
on.
now got to come through you because now
Well,
you're
that's
a friend
it.
of the podcast, and so if
I'm
you don't want
with-
Eric on, it's
Nope.
your hour. You do what you want with it.
You do whatever you want.
Sorry, Eric, you are no longer. You've been unfriended. Deleo is your contact. She's
That's it.
your
That's
way
your only
in.
in now. He can email me tomorrow. I'm going to say, nope, time has passed, baby.
Yeah.
Now, if DeLeo emails, okay, we'll consider it.
Yes.
That's the end of that relationship. Oh, well. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you for coming on.